All right. With that, we'll get started here. So, a lot of the introductions that I've heard, not only just on this call, but on the Artistic Warrior group page, there is some iteration of as far as what the want is. We want to become the best version of ourselves. Now, is that explicitly the case for every single person? No, but I think it's implicitly been said over and over and over again with all of the introductions in there. And I was trying to find a common theme or motif to extract from all of the introductions on that page. So, and I think I get goosebumps thinking about that because that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's a good want to have. Now, the question is, or I guess the problem, because there's a lot of us that are lacking what? And there was another buzzword that I saw in here. So if we want to become the best version of ourselves, in order to get there, we need what? We need accountability. We need accountability. And then, so if that's the want, or if the want is to become the best version of ourselves, the problem is that we're lacking accountability, which then makes us feel, and Beth said this, hit it right on the head, she feels stuck. So, how do we get unstuck? How do we get to this best version of ourselves? Well, as you guys know, I'm a writer, and the thing that I'm always trying to identify when starting a new book or even a piece that I'm writing, whether it's an Instagram caption or an email, is what is the problem? What is the problem? Because if you identify the problem, you are already halfway to finding the solution. Take David's gym, for example. A kid is slow. Okay, that's the problem. Well, he's already halfway to the solution, which is what? Get that kid faster. Okay, so what is the problem in this? I think we have to ask ourselves that. What is the problem? And that could be one thing that you could ask yourself in terms of how we get unstuck to achieve to have some accountability to ultimately get to the best version of ourselves. What is the problem? That's a good question to ask. If I may wax philosophical for a second, I think the problem is that we are not scratching our own itch. I think that is the problem. I think that's the problem. Now, take it from somebody who did not scratch their own itch for 20 years, and you got a recipe for getting a PhD in self sabotage. Now, why is scratching your own itch important? Well, I actually have a chapter in that in my book, and I just pulled it out last night. So I think so. What did I say here? If you're wired for entrepreneurship, but you're not sure what to do or what to offer the marketplace, I would tell you to scratch your own itch, not someone else's. Sure, it's easier to fill a demand than create a demand. I get that. But it's easier to fill your demand than someone else's. If you're filling someone else's demand instead of your own, you will need to create the demand for yourself first. So and if we need to go, and if anybody has, please, if you guys have questions or if you want to interject, this is meant to be more of a discussion than a lecture. So please feel free to interrupt me on it at any point in time there. But I did the latter for a long time in terms of scratching somebody else's itch because, hey, it is easier to fill a demand than to create one. But for lack of a better word, and it sounds crass, but it's true, I kind of ended up becoming somewhat of a prostitute because I was always trying to scratch somebody else's itch instead of my own. And now that's what we're doing here. If you haven't caught on yet, that's what this group is. That's what this group is for me personally. This is me scratching my own itch. There is not a group that incorporates faith, family, fitness, and what sets my soul on fire. There isn't. That group does not exist. There is not a group out there that integrates both the athlete and the artist into one. So that's me. This is me scratching my own itch. I'm an Amazon bestselling author, but I'm also a professional amateur athlete. I say professional amateur because I run unattached as a sprinter at Grand Valley, and then actually a week from today, I'll be starting training camp for the West Michigan Ironman. Still hard to wrap my mind around that I'm actually going to be playing indoor football, but hey, again, that's me scratching my own itch. So I say all that to say, if you don't know, or if you're a little vague when it comes to what that itch is, don't worry. That's what this group is for. Been where you're at. It's all good. But I'm also more inclined to say that I think most of us do know what that itch is. And I think that we're just a little bit afraid, or maybe we don't have the accountability to scratch it. Okay? So that begs the question, how do we start scratching our own itch? Now, this is a tool that I have been using for probably 8 years, ever since I owned my gym back when David was a mentee of mine. I was probably in 17 or 18, and it's called a 90-day objective. Now, given that we're already almost through the entire first quarter, we'll just call it a 60-day objective. Okay, so here's how the 60-day objective works. So we'll just put this as what's 60 days from now, roughly. So March 31. What is that objective there? Now, does this have to be one objective? Absolutely not. We can have an objective for our family. We can have an objective for our fitness. We can have an objective for our finances. And we can have an objective for what sets our soul on fire. Now that's open-ended by design. For me, that's obviously finishing my next book and things of that nature. For Jordan, it might be hunting. For Osh or Osama, it might be doing something with pottery. It doesn't matter. Whatever sets your soul on fire there. And then everything else is somewhat self-explanatory in terms of the category there. And so why do we start at the end? Because it's just, so this is how the integration of athletics comes into it, whether it's in business or personal. That's how you build things out from a training standpoint. If I want to run a 1 second flat and a flying 10-meter dash, then I would say, okay, I want to be, by the end of March, I want to have achieved a 1 second flying 10. Right now, I run a 1.09 consistently. Okay, so then we know that by the end of, which would be February, I know that I need to be running at least 1.04 in order to stay on track toward that goal at the end of March. Now, so we do that for a couple of reasons. The first reason we do that is because if we are either on track or off track by the end of February, then we know we have to do what? We have to course correct. Okay? So then if I'm doing a 1.02 flying 10 by the end of February, well, then I know that I might have actually underestimated myself, and then I might need to make an adjustment to what my goal is for the end of March. So hopefully this is making a bit of sense here. Now, these are the goals, okay, for each of the 4 areas of your life. And somewhere in here, right, we would just have what we would call an MTL. And an MTL stands for Master Task List. Okay? So I heard Osama wants to build his business. Okay. So if Osama wants to add 100 more clients to his pipeline or to his practice by the end of March, okay, well then if we're reverse engineering that, we'll know that we need to, and Osama would know this better than I based on what his client acquisition rate is, and then also what his churn rate is. If churn is something that's applicable to your business, Osama, we would need to do, 70 is there. But really coming back to this here, what does that mean then? How many reach outs per day are you doing? How many cold calls are you doing today? I know when I sold insurance, I did 300 cold calls a day. Now, I don't know if you're just selling just life insurance or something like that, but this will give you all of the task lists that you need to do every single day in order to stay on track for this, in order to stay on track for this. Now, again, if by the end of February 28th, we've determined that in order to be on track for the 100 at the end of the quarter, right? Maybe Osama comes in at 90. Okay, well then now we might want to bump this up here to 120. And then but then the reverse is also true. If you only came in at 60, right, then we might have to make an adjustment there. Now, again, this is just one area of our lives. If we're trying to be the best version of ourselves.
So, Hunter, not to interject here, but question for you.
No, please do interject.
So you're like what you were just pointing out there. So say you come in at 60 and you want to change that March 31st number. Where or like what do you set that to then? Because you don't want to say, well, I got 60, so I'll do 20 more, knowing that potentially 90 is achievable. So how do you determine where you drop that to, if you will?
Well, I think it would go back to what?
What's the best thought process on that? Because you don't want to put it so low that it becomes achievable. You still want to be able to work for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think what you would do is it would go back to the metrics that you're using for that. So what do I mean by that? Especially with something like insurance. So I knew based on my leads sheet, and if this would be helpful, then I can still upload those. I still have those. So the way that I would do it is I would have an Excel spreadsheet. And on that Excel spreadsheet, Jordan, I would have all of the list of all my leads, whether those were cold leads, warm leads, leads I bought off the internet, whatever. And I would then color code those leads. So if I had leads that became appointments, I would turn that color of that name's lead into orange. And then if they became a client, they would be green. If I got them to the finish line, but I couldn't close them, I would turn that red. So where am I going with all this? At the end of the month, I could then determine, okay, if I want, this month resulted in 5 clients. Okay, how did I get there? Well, the path is in the math. 5 clients was the result of 15 appointments, was the result of 45 phone calls, was the result of 90 leads. And then it just kind of funnels itself down there. And so then you could make more informed decisions and course corrections from the end of February until the end of March. Does that make sense, Jordan?
Yeah, that makes sense. I wanted, you think about dropping a number and now I don't want to say you're giving up, you're making it more achievable, but at the same time, it's realistic. So just trying to find that realistic number to get to.
Yeah, so I mean, in the financial one is always the easiest one for me, just because I'm wired to be a salesman, so I can, whether even for something like this group, right? So we've got 17 members. I know that resulted as it was a result of X, which was a result of X, which was a result of X, right? And then and then I can continue to just use that formulaic equation to grow the group. And you can do that again. This isn't limited to just finance. I think finance is always the easiest one, just because I'm wired for sales. But and again, this could be this. Did somebody have a question?
Yeah. So I guess the thing I struggle with is when I launched my business, right? A lot of it was referral based. A lot of it was just kind of putting your head down and focusing on getting the business up and running. And so I'm gonna be frank, I never paid attention to like the conversion rates. I never paid attention to, okay, based on this amount of leads. And it's not just focusing on the financial piece of it too, right? Like I'm thinking of all these additional things, whether it's my health, whether it's my family, whether all this. Are you saying for this 60-day objective, it's more of a trial period of like understanding and knowing like what the standards are, or figuring out, hey, this is what my conversion and what these numbers mean? Because if I haven't paid attention to them and I don't know what they are, just to throw out a objectively random number, not random, but like something that I think I can achieve.
Yeah, and I think I mean, if you'd be open to it, Osama, I'd love to take a look at. I'd love to just take a peek at your business, see what you got going on
Yeah.
in terms of how many clients you have and things like that. But if I may be so vulnerable, I mean, I think you're already way ahead of where I was. Did you know? Did you know? In my gym was doing $250,000 gross by the end of year 3. I didn't see my first P&L until 16 months into the business. So I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And yeah, and so I say that to encourage you. If you don't know your numbers, it's not the end of the world, but I mean, you could really blast off into the stratosphere once you do know them.
Yeah.
And I mean, so how are you acquiring clients mostly? Mostly warm referrals?
Yeah, the majority of my business has all been on like referrals. It's all the sphere, the people I know, partners, lenders, and
Yeah.
so like obviously the business is insurance, so it's not the life side. It's more of the home business, auto,
Okay. Yeah. So property, is it property and casualty? Property
property and
casualty auto?
casualty. Yeah, yep.
Yeah. And so do you know off the top of your head how many clients you have right now?
A little over 300, so it's like 327,
And how many years have you been in business?
2.5.
Okay. So let's just do some simple math here. So 320, 300, come on. 327 divided by 2.5. So you're doing about 130 a year divided by 12. Okay, so you're doing about 11 clients a month. There you go. So you can, so then we could say then that Osama would want, and then if you wanted to stretch yourself, you could say, you could make that number 25 or 30 new clients by the end of
Okay.
March. So that's a simple way to do that. And if you wanted to get, can I just is the rest of the group okay for me just getting a little nerdy on insurance real quick with Osama? Are we okay with that? It'll take like 1 minute. Okay. So the one thing that I did, and I don't know if this is something that you want to do, Osama, but I would literally go out and I'd buy a list of leads for $150, and then this is what I would do. And I think this is applicable to anything, especially like your business, David. Okay, so this was my formula right here. I'd buy a list of leads, okay, and then I'd buy like 100 leads, and I would triple tap them. So I would call them back to back to back before I would go on to the next lead. Okay, and so let's say I made 300 dials that day and only one answer. Okay, well the leads are crap. Okay, so I gotta get new leads. Now, let's say I did 100 dials and 20 of them were answers, but only three of them I got to the presentation part of what I do. Okay, well that means I need to get better on the phone. I need to get better engagement with them. Okay, let's say I did 300 dials, 20 answers, 15 presentations, but only resulted in one sale. Well, then that means that I need to get better at closing, right? And so again, the path is in the math there, and that's something that you can apply to anything that's direct response. So basically direct response, I would just call that pounding the pavement, pick up the phone, knocking doors, doing free clinics like you and I have talked about, David, right? But that's a simple formula. Again, I don't know if that's applicable to how you well, you said mainly referral based, but if you want to get a bunch of clients, right, that might be a way to do it. It's you're spending $150 for potentially $1,000 or $2, $1,000 a day. When I was doing life insurance, I don't know what the commissions are for property and casualty, but that was how I sold life insurance for the most part if I wasn't working with my warm market. Okay. So hopefully that helped a little bit there, Osama.
Oh, that did. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So and again, so the master task list, you don't gotta outthink the room. It doesn't have to be super sexy. Just what do you need to be, what are the types of activities that you need to be doing in order to achieve your goal? Okay. So and make the goal, I hate to sound cheesy, but make it smart, right? So it's simple, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's realistic, it's timely. Okay. I mean, so Beth is just getting back to being healthy. Okay. I don't know if you guys saw her video. She just ripped 165 for 5 or 6 on the deadlift. Okay. The woman is strong. All right. So if Beth is doing 165 for 6, right? Now, then you get to ask yourself the question, Beth, where am I going for? Am I going for just getting some strength back, just general strength? Or am I looking to
We want
be
to set
more?
more records.
Okay, so then, that was gonna be my next question. Let's be more sports specific because Beth's the power lifter. If it's more sports specific, then we need to be talking about singles because that's what your sport requires, right? So if you're doing 165 for 6 now, then are we setting a goal for, okay, I want to pull 2 slabs of beef off the floor by the end of March? Again, you know yourself better than I do. When it comes to your
Mhm.
training, I can say that I think that's more than attainable watching your videos. I mean, easily. But
But there's a difference though, Hunter,
what?
because my problem is before you even write on the board. Because if I make a goal in powerlifting, I
Mhm.
know I can achieve it because I've been successful and I know that I'm good and I have the skills and the trainer to get me there.
Right.
The things why I'm stuck is because there are areas I feel that I need to go that I've never done before. I don't know if I have the skill set, and if I'm not gonna succeed, I don't wanna start. Not putting myself out there to complete fail in front of everybody, or I do my master task list and go, "Well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that." What what am I doing? And I
Mhm.
don't even start because I have sabotaged myself into believing I'll never get to where I wanna be.
Well, I mean, that sounds like we just need to change the story that's running around in your head then, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So, you have to become like I talk about in the book. You got to become conscious of your unconscious thoughts. You got to start thinking about what you're thinking about, and just, everybody. I think for the most part, and I wouldn't be ashamed if we weren't. A lot of people on this call are Christians, and so that's the enemy. That's the enemy.
Oh,
It
yeah.
talk-
Why have I gone up for full professor at Grand Valley and gotten denied both times by my own department?
right. No, I'm not gonna. I won't say that. I won't say that's the enemy. That could be God setting you up for something even greater, right?
Well, see, exactly.
It's
See,
the teddy bear meme. It's the teddy bear meme. Have you seen? Is everybody here seen the teddy bear meme? Jesus is asking the little girl for her teddy bear, and he's got a big freaking teddy bear behind his back. It's the teddy bear, right? But I want to dig into that a little bit, Beth. You said in order for you don't like, what things are you saying that you don't think you can or are afraid to try when it comes to setting records?
well, setting records, I'm good with that. You
Yeah.
give me a powerlifting goal, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go meet it and exceed it.
Okay.
But in things like wanting to write a book or put
Oh,
together
okay.
a
Now I got you.
an
Yep.
online course that people can pay for
Yep.
that will help not just scratch my itch of international teaching, but
Yep.
help my finances. And it's just, I'm looking at a blank board
Yep.
and just when I write something up there, the first thing I write is like, what? Me? Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So here, I love this because this is how sprinting and training gets incorporated in this. So when I wrote my first book, it wasn't like an actual book like The Way. It was more like a how-to book. It was called The 3 Ps of Speed, and but that, by the way, is posture, pattern, and push. I think David Cutts actually has that book. Anyways, there were 3 rules in there that I put in the book in order to really make sure that if you were going to start sprinting, that you would do it without setbacks, i.e., injury. Okay, and those 3 rules were soft to hard, short to long, slow to fast. Okay, soft to hard meaning softer surfaces, right? So you're sprinting on grass or turf, not hard like concrete or the track, because if your lower leg tendons and musculature aren't reactive enough yet, you're going to ask for injury. So you want to be on a more compliant surface to start, so those forces dissipate into the ground rather than dissipating into you. Okay, and then short to long, that's pretty obvious, right? Starting with 10-meter bouts. We've all seen the horror shows where somebody will just try and sprint a 40-yard dash when they've been sedentary, for lack of a better word, and they blow their hamstring out, right? So short being shorter bouts before you go into the longer ones, and then slow to fast. Slow to fast meaning around 85 to 90% intensity, right? And so the reason why we do that is because sprinting is more of a brain activity than a muscular one. So you want to make sure that you're getting your brain ready to fire and wire at the speed that it needs to, so you don't run into injury. Why am I bringing this up for what you're talking about right now, Beth? Because these principles, not necessarily the granularness of them, applies to exactly what you're talking about. Okay, well, you just said it right there. I don't know how I'm going to write a book. Well, a book's too darn big right now. Let's talk about a blog. Let's talk about the first sentence selling the second sentence, and then just seeing where that takes you. Okay? And then when it comes to how you sell it, what am I doing right now? What am I doing right now? I am not charging anybody here a damn thing. And there's a reason for that. Because I have done this play before in everything that I've done. And it works. David and I are doing this play for him right now. I'm helping David out, getting his gym off the ground. This play works. I gave away so many free warm-ups and free speed clinics at my gym. I mean, we trained hundreds of girls soccer players before we got the one. And then once we got her name is Jen Blitchock. She just finished her senior year at Western Michigan. She was the all-time leading scorer in the nation. She's going to play for the Utah Royals professionally now this spring. So we got her. Once we got Jen, it was over. So what am I saying? You are going, and this can be applied to anybody in the room right now with anything. So once you have your 60-day objectives, and once you you got your 60-day objective for the 4 key areas of your life, then there's this little bugger about the finances piece where it comes to making money. This is what I would do. You give away the generic. You sell personal. You give away information. You sell implementation. I'm not worried about getting people in here and considering them prospects when they're in here, because this group is free for you guys forever. I want good people in this group. Okay? Because I know, given my experience with a gym and a consultant for the NFL and special forces and insurance and copywriting, all of that stuff, I did this because buyers buy. The people who want to buy and who want to move forward with you, they will do that. Why? Because they're buying you. They're not buying what you're selling, they're buying you. Okay? So that's what I would say, Beth. I would say apply those principles when it comes to the sprinting, but those principles are applicable to your journey in terms of, let's say that would be the fire piece for you, Beth. right? You want to start writing. You want to get to maybe you want to get to a blog or maybe a novella, which is like 10,000 words, very short, very short. Okay, short to long, short to long. And then if you're worried about selling things, I just wouldn't worry about it. I would just give it all away. I would give it all away. That's what I did with the 3 P's of speed. I wrote a 20,000 word how to book on creating faster athletes, and I gave it away for free. And all I asked for in return was an email address. And then, boom, my email list went from 0 to 500 overnight. And then I just continued to nurture them and give them away free stuff. And every now and then, if I had a campaign, I would just then people would buy because buyers buy, and they're buying you. So
If
that's what I would do for that. I just threw a lot at you. Does that resonate with anybody? Anybody have any comments on that?
I was just gonna say, Beth, if and maybe I understood a different part of it as far as like getting started and like not knowing how to get started and just thinking to yourself, oh, I can't do that. You're measuring yourself to an ideal, right? And Dr. Benjamin Hardy, like this is one of my favorite books, like The Gap and the Gain, where he talks about we always measure ourselves against an ideal rather than actually looking back and seeing the progress that we've made. And I think about it like from the perspective of running. So I was never a runner. I ran my first marathon 2 years ago, and it was torture. It was
Mm.
literally torture. And every time I would run, every time I would get to a mile, I'm like, damn it, I have this many miles to go. And then after I read that book, my mindset changed in the sense of like, holy shit, look at how far I've gotten. I just ran 12 miles. I just ran 20 miles. I just ran this many miles. So I think for you, at least what I heard from you is I don't think anybody really knows how to do some of the stuff, and we kind of figure it out as we go. But as you're doing these new things, the courses, writing the book, writing the chapter, you want to look at it from the perspective of like, okay, I wrote a chapter. Where was I last week?
Hmm.
Nothing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think there was a book that talks a little bit about what you're talking about, Osama. It's a euphemism for what you were talking about, and I think it was called "Run Your Race." Ah, yeah, right. Run your race. Comparison's the thief of joy, right? Running the race, your race will look different from everybody else's, right? And it's really more about, as Coach Mitch said, Jordan, you become more of a process than a product type of mindset, right? I mean, when I was done with this thing, I was so sick of it. I was so sick of it. I still haven't read it, and I never will. It was like I wanted to just go on to the next thing. So, but any any questions when it comes to this and incorporating these 4 areas into our lives in order to become the best version of ourselves? For me, I can tell you that I need to be better about having a date night with my wife every single week. No questions asked. I know that for sure. Always want to get faster, so I'm sure that's going to be something speed based for me. Finances wise, hey, I do have a good job. It's a very nice. I call it a laundromat. It's a nice laundromat for me. And why do I call it a laundromat? Because Stephen King wrote Salem's Lot in a laundromat, and that was his second novel. And then once he released that, then Stephen King went on to become Stephen King. And so that's ultimately what I want to do for the rest of my life is write books. But so I do have a good job, and so I say that to say I have the luxury, for lack of a better word, of running my race. And so maybe at the end of March 31st, if we have 17 members in this group now, the group is moving to anybody who comes in after February 1st will pay $49 a month. So hey, maybe I want X amount of paid members in this group by then, whatever, right? And then the fire piece is very simple for me. It's like, okay, well, what draft are you going to be done with by the end of March? I just began my 6th draft 2 days ago for the next book. So, but this isn't about me. This is about you guys. So, what does this make sense? Do we have any questions about this? I can't see any of you. I'm gonna turn around here.
Can you repeat the acronym for MPL again?
Repeat the acronym for what?
The MPL.
Oh, master task list.
Yeah.
Master task list. So for somebody like yourself with the gym piece, it's okay. How many free speed clinics are you putting on a month? Right? How many reach outs are you doing a month? How many referral asks are you asking for a month? How many reignition campaigns are you starting a month? Right? So just things like that, David, would be your MTL base. I mean, because as you and I have talked about, I mean, we just got to get way more clients in the door. So anything master task list wise for your finances piece is all about client acquisition. What are the things that you need to be doing to get people to darken your door?
All right.
And so, and I make it measurable, make it tangible, right? So, I mean, I can't spend more time with my wife. What does that mean, right? 12 date nights between now and then. That is something that is tangible. That is something that is measurable. So, here's what I want, and I'll lead the way in this so you guys can see how I always do this. I'll make a discussion post on the group. I'll put my version of the 20 of this. Now again, usually this is 90 days, but we're already a third of the way through the first quarter. So we'll put a 60-day objective into the discussion board, right, for these 4 areas of our lives, so we can hold each other accountable to become one step closer to the best version of ourselves. And if it's not going the way that you want it to go in the early goings, you do not have my permission to beat yourself up. This is the first time you're doing it. And again, apply the rules of the sprinting. Okay, it's short to long for a reason. It's soft to hard for a reason. It's slow to fast for a reason. You're just getting your feet underneath you, no pun intended. And we have these built-in benchmarks to course correct if we need to. Okay, and that's what I ultimately want to be here for you guys is as a resource and ultimately for each other as well. So, questions on that before I let you guys go?
No. All right. Could you guys, so Jordan, Beth, and Osama, could you guys tell me what you guys do and what you guys are looking for? I came in a little bit late. Sorry.
No, you're good. I'll just go real quick. I've got an insurance agency in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm a father of 2, expecting more, and just